Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery, Freddy in Space 2.
What the?
I don't even see a Freddy in Space 1.
I was gonna say.
Freddy in Space 2.
It's like horror movies. You don't need a first one. You just need the sequel.
Security Breach, Fury's Rage, Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, U2's Presents, Five Nights at Freddy's, Ruin, Freddy in Space 3, Chica in Space, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2.
Well, that was a movie.
Oh, God. Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon. This motherfucker is Justin. And we just spent what felt like 5 nights watching Five Nights at Freddy's. You know, but it was worthy of a standing ovation, I think.
It was over 2 hours, and yes.
Was it over 2 hours? Oh.
Slightly, yeah.
Okay.
And I felt like the middle schoolers next to us were right about to break out into that standing ovation.
There was applause. When was the last time you saw a movie that there was applause afterward?
Some Marvel film. I don't remember which one.
Touche. They applauded all those stupid movies. So, who was involved in this garbage? All right, so it was directed by Emma Tammy. Never heard of her, but I haven't seen anything else she's done. She's known for The Wind, Fair Chase, The Left-Right Game.
Yep.
You know, The Left-Right Game. It was written by Scott Cawthon, however you say that, and Seth Kudabek. Emma Tammy, Chris Lee. Of course, there's 5 writers. Chris Lee Hill, Tyler McIntyre, starring Josh Hutcherson, Matthew Lillard, other people.
The police officer and the kid.
I don't care. Credit them. Matthew Lillard was good. I'll give him that. I think he knew what this movie was and acted appropriately. So I'll give him that. Josh Hutcherson, to be fair, wasn't bad. He was fine. I think
he looked tired, so yeah, he fit the role.
Various actors knew, because we had talked about while seeing the trailer, is this a kids horror or is this a regular horror? It's Blumhouse, but it looks kiddie. What is it? It's a kiddie horror movie, and not a particularly good one, because it's there can be. I was thinking about this earlier today. I was like, am I being too harsh preemptively on this movie? Because are there really any good kid horror movies? And the answer is a resounding yes. The one that comes to mind immediately is Gremlins. Is not necessarily kiddie, but it's only PG. You know, it's a PG rated movie, granted an 80s PG. You know, they didn't have PG-13 yet, I don't think. But still, it's a PG, and it is a fantastic movie. You can make a good horror movie that is still acceptable for a child-friendly audience and make it good. The Gremlins is a classic. This had a couple of interesting moments, I will admit. There was a couple of moments that I was like, oh, okay, we are actually kind of feeling out the boundaries of PG-13 and doing some interesting things, but for the most part, it's quick cutaways, hinted at violence, and that's not even just that all could have been fine. It should have been a rated R movie, but it wasn't. I get it. It's a kid's game. What really bugs me is that it's not the game. At least not the one I played. I only played the first one, though, but
I somewhat remember playing the game in college for a week or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't the game either, but wow. Hey, the animatronics were there, so, very exactly the same.
Yeah, and I do believe I read somewhere that it was the Henson company that made them, and it wasn't, for the most part, CGI, actually. I think there was CGI enhancements in there, especially the cupcake moving around and stuff was CGI. But a lot of it, I believe, was actually practical effects and looked fantastic. It really did. Also, the set design was fantastic. It looked so much like the video game layout and everything. I was very happy with the accuracy with those things. It was just the plot. It reminded me of, I don't know if you saw it, but when the Slender Man movie came out, once again, same situation where it's you're here multiple years too late. The people do not care about Five Nights at Freddy's anymore.
Hey,
okay.
I got applause.
True. Well, also, I think little kids care about it now.
Yeah, I also think it's funny to applause out loud when no one else is, too.
Yeah.
I did this before.
But, when the Slender Man movie came out, I was like, nobody played that game anymore. And then it had nothing to do with either the game.
When did that come out?
15, 20, no, 17? 17.
Actually, that was my first year playing that game.
Was it really?
I never played it until college. And we played it for one night.
I played it in high school. When did the game come out?
No idea.
It was definitely pre-college because I remember thinking about Slender Man when I was in my first semester at college. So it was before that. But no, so it's like, and then it's not based on the game really. It's not based on the mythology, and that's how this felt. It's like, did they play the game or just get like? Obviously, it was written by the guy who made the game, so he knows what he's talking about. But not to get into spoilers yet, because we will soon. But it's like, there was half an hour of this like 2-hour movie that was dedicated to the actual thing. It's like we're so distracted by like these dreams and all this other bullshit outside going on. It's like we got so much boring backstory to start this movie. Yeah. We didn't need that. All we needed to know is Josh Hutcherson needs money real bad at all costs. So he's going to work this job regardless of how endangered his life is doing it. That's all we needed to know. And we have such eye-rolling long amounts of this backstory where it's like, first of all, really predictable and badly written. He's like a mall cop and you see him and like, oh, he's getting fired right now. Like you just know that before anything goes wrong. And then, like, you've got this whole sob story with his younger sister he's having to take care of. And then he's got an aunt who wants custody. I'm like, I do not give a shit. I do not care. Why are we doing this?
Man has problems and need money, okay?
That's all I needed to know. You saying that was as much time as they should have dedicated to it. We could have started with the scene of him meeting Matthew Lillard in the office going, I need money. And him going, how badly do you need money? Like, really bad. And then he'd be like, okay, here's a job. And he took it. That's as much time as we could have dedicated to this shit.
Hey, man. See, what he doesn't understand is, family. Okay? That's what's truly important
Vin Diesel.
If we didn't have the family connection,
it would have been better.
How would parents bring their children to this movie?
Like, I will.
No family connection.
I know I complained in the moment about adding these other characters. Like, there's this whole subplot about people breaking in and causing a scene. I get why they did that, though. If you really want the main character to be there playing as if you were playing the game, it's boring because nobody dies, unless he does.
Unless you lose,
yeah, and then the movie's over. So you need other people to be involved so that they can die. But it's like you add this sister character, and you're like, well, she can't die. She's the sister of the main character. And then you add in a love interest, and you're like, well, she can't die. She's the love interest. And it's like, I don't need any of this. You can add in other things, and obviously I'm fine with you adding in an outside world to this guy. Like, he's not only living at Freddy's, but we didn't need so much of it. Like, it was so boring.
I will say, I'm less annoyed that the stuff was introduced.
I thought you were just as heated as I was.
No, and more annoyed that all the stuff that was introduced was never resolved in the slightest. That's what annoys me the most, is that they introduced it for the scenes of those people dying and then basically ignored it for the rest of the film. And it's just no resolution for those plot lines at all. Not even slightly.
And none of it made any sense, and like it was simply there to take up runtime.
Yeah.
Or just be bizarre.
When you could have just chopped this 20 minutes.
Like, I mean, he's got this whole thing about like he has trouble sleeping because he has nightmares, so he has to take these sleeping pills. And you're like, well, okay, is that going to be important? Not really. The only things that matter with that is that he stops taking them for a while because the cop throws them in the river, which is just illegal, and then and then later he has to go to a pharmacy to get more, and then the pharmacist says probably the funniest thing in the whole movie, just calls him an asshole. And it's like, that was the only, like, those two moments were the only reason to add, as a scriptwriter, him having those pills. And that's why when you look on IMDb and you see there's 5 writers, you know shit was going on. Because somebody was like, I think we should have this subplot, and somebody else was like, oh, I don't want it. And then you're just having all these people throw ideas at the wall and then take out the ideas that don't work. So you just get like remnants. You have fossils from previous scripts in there. And it's like, maybe the sleeping pills mattered in one of the versions of the script, but they don't mean shit now, so they should be gone.
Hey man, they just help him stay asleep, that's all. He's got these dreams. all the time, and
The dream.
he wakes up in a panic.
Dreams. The dreams. I'm saving the dreams for the spoilers, but man, they sucked.
Oh yeah, we definitely have to save them for the spoilers. But yes, no single plot line in this was any amount of
Necessary.
good, really.
Or
Or
had
necessary.
point to it,
No.
or literally
Was interesting.
There was good parts to this movie. I don't want to lie. I gave it a 4 for a reason. There was good parts. All the good parts were the parts that felt like you were playing the game. Like, people getting chased by the monsters. A couple of jump scares. There should have been more jump scares. I feel like when your video game is predicated entirely on jump scares,
Yeah,
then you should have had more of them.
they needed more goons. They needed a lot.
They needed more people to
goons.
die. Yeah, they needed more people to die. Like, what's the body count in this movie? Like 4? Okay, 5 because the guy at the beginning. Okay, what can I say? Boring, too long, terrible acting for the most part. Like, and miscasts. I did not buy for a millisecond that that lady was a cop. And I started thinking, maybe she's a fake cop. Maybe this is like she's tricking him, because I didn't believe her as a cop
That would have been
so
funnier,
much.
actually.
So they had a couple of close-ups on her hands, and she had like long nails with French tips. I'm like, that doesn't look like a cop's hand to me. Also, just the way she interacted and talked, I was like, she is suspicious as fuck. And
Yeah,
then
they definitely made her pretty suspicious the whole time. But I'll say, maybe it's just a small town, all right? They need as many cops as they can get.
they're desperate, so they hire the models.
Hey, anyone can join, all right? You bring the models in, that's how you get the guys in.
Also, like I said, we went in not knowing if this was going to be an adult movie or a kid's movie, and from the first scene, because they do the basic rule where you start with a murder and then start the story. And so you've got the opening scene where the old security guard is being chased by monsters, and he is running like this, and he's just like, oh my god, and he's just so cheesy and so kiddie. I was like, oh, that's what we're doing. And frankly, a lot of the movie was more adult in that moment, but it's like, that set the tone early. We know what we're in for. This is a kid's movie, and boy, oh boy, man, it's just gonna suck, isn't it?
Yeah.
It kind of really genuinely shocks me. And let me double check and make sure he actually wrote it, or was he just not credited? Yeah, no, so not only it's based on video game series Five Nights at Freddy's by, screen story by, screenplay by. He is the top credited writer on this movie. And granted, like we said at the top, we didn't play the whole series or anything. There's a lot of lore that we are not aware of, but this was just all over the place story-wise, and it's a shame because it's like, part of me was like, this could be a good kids movie. They don't need good acting, they don't need good writing, but it's too complicated for a kid to enjoy, because it's like, what the hell are we talking about the whole damn time?
I feel like kids could turn off their brains well enough for this one, but it's just...
But then there's too much talking. They're talking about random shit, and you're constantly like, if you're a kid and you're like, ooh, cool, a scary movie about animatronics, and then you get all that shit, you're bored, right? I'd be.
I would think so.
Yeah.
But...
like, what are we talking about? All right, I think that's it. Let's get into spoilers.
what a great spoiler-free review.
Yeah.
Definitely, totally recommended.
Yeah. All that to say, it was great.
See how much he loves it?
Yeah, if you don't want anything spoiled, click away now. But please remember to like, share. If you're new here, subscribe. We're getting into spoilers right now. God damn. So, yeah, the dreams. Like I said, we're not super aware of the lore here.
I mean, it could be totally accurate.
It could be
but
totally
if it is,
accurate.
it's pretty bad still.
Yeah, then it's shit. It's bad. But like, so the whole thing is, they're not just, animatronics that were programmed wrong. They're possessed by the spirits of dead children that were murdered by a serial child murderer who's aged surprisingly well, because if he was murdering people 20 years ago, he must have been doing it when he was fairly young, I guess. I don't know. Now they have been brainwashed by him to believe that he is their protector or something, so they do his bidding, they do his will.
Yeah.
And so murder people.
He built these animatronics that can, like, house their bodies.
Uh-huh.
And it kills them, but keeps them in the machine and they're still alive or something.
They're not
like
still
that.
alive. They're dead.
Or they're controlling the machine with their spirits.
With their spirit powers.
But I guess their
And
bodies are
sometimes
just decomposed in there.
Yeah, but sometimes they can use their spirits to walk around freely. Like, there's multiple times you see the kids just walking around. And it's not just the kid that sees them, adults see them.
Yeah. It's kind of odd. I guess it's like in the place they can see the kids, but they're also the representation
the kid was
of
at the
the
house,
animatronics.
The kid was at the house when they went to pick up the girl.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. I guess ghosts are just real. I guess that's what we're going with here.
Hey man, sometimes you look at them and you see the spirits of the children inside them.
I don't know. And like I said, there's lore here that we're unaware of, I'm sure. But to me, based on my experience playing the first game, all I wanted was there are animatronics here that kill people. That's all you needed. That's all you needed to make a good horror movie is animatronics that kill people. Maybe, okay, you can add in Matthew Lillard is evil and he's planning this shit. For whatever reason, he's killing people on purpose. Oh no, plot twist. Okay, cool, fine with that. The spirits of dead children get involved. I don't know about that. I'm losing interest all of a sudden.
And you know what? I honestly feel like that could have been done okay too. Until they start to involve the guy's family and the sister and then
Too much. That's what I'm saying. You tap out.
There could have been an alright mystery behind the dead children that have been revealed over the course of the movie, but no.
It was a mystery. But like I said, everything's predictable as fuck. The first time you see the girl,
1000%.
you don't trust her, and then like a little bit later, you're like, oh, her dad is, and then you're like the whole time you're like, the dad's involved, and then like, oh, the owner's still involved, and you see Matthew Lillard, you're like, I know he's an evil motherfucker. He's gonna do something. You don't cast it in this for nothing.
What is it like? What is it like? Do you see the 5 animatronics, and the cop woman comes in later, and she's clearly knows everything about the place.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she mentions the 5 dead children the first time or something like that.
Yeah, she tells him the backstory.
Yeah, and so as soon as you hear the 5 dead children, you're like, oh gosh, 5 dead children and 5 machines, and they're probably connected there.
Which I know is from the video games at some point. I do know that.
Yeah, and I'm sure more of the story than we realize is actually canon. It wouldn't shock me.
Doesn't mean it doesn't suck, though.
No, this was bad.
Also, you know, it's just so much stuff like is predictable. Like I said, like the second you saw Josh Hutcherson look at that kid, you're like, oh, he's gonna do something and get fired here. And then the dad comes over.
Oh my
I'm like,
gosh,
yep, he's gonna get fired. No. And then he starts beating the shit out of him. Like, okay, I didn't expect that much, but I knew he was gonna get fired.
They very much made it look like, you know, they clearly set it up in the movie to make it look like, oh, he clearly has justification for feeling like this kid is being abducted. Because the kid's just standing there, looking around, nervous. Looking like, where's my parents?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, somebody just runs up from the side, grabs him, and starts dragging him off. And he's clearly fighting being dragged off.
Right. My point is that it's predictable as fuck.
Yeah, and he's clearly, like, he's gonna run over, and it's gonna be the guy's dad, and he's just taking away his son.
Yeah.
They just made it look shady. He beats the hell out of this guy.
Also, he's talking to Matthew Lillard, and the main reason you know he's evil, outside of, like, if you can turn off your brain and know Matthew Lillard being cast in this means his role is important, if you turn that part of your brain off, even so, he's having this discussion, Matthew Lillard's being a dick to him. Like, he's like, you're useless, you can't get any job, you suck. What is your name anyway? Mike? And then he stops and looks at him like, oh, I know. And at first you think he's just having trouble pronouncing his last name. It's a silly joke. And then you realize, oh, that's not the joke. He actually recognizes his last name. And then all of a sudden he's like, do you want coffee? Here's some coffee. And he's being nice to him, too nice to him. And it's like, okay, so this motherfucker is doing shit. Like, he's behind this shit. And you just know that from, like, that scene on, which is fairly early on in the movie. So it's like, this movie is just predictable. And I get it. It's for kids. But like I said, Gremlins is also, Poltergeist is also only PG, by the way. You can make classic horror movies that are genuinely great, well-written, well-directed, well-acted, that are okay for kids to watch. I mean, I know they weren't made for kids, but Tales from the Crypt, even though it's TV mature, a lot of kids grew up watching that stuff. There's a lot of horror movies in general kids grew up watching.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can make stuff that is good for everybody. Child's Play 2. I know a lot of kids that watch that. That is rated R. I'm not recommending it for kids. But, like, kids can watch that, some, and get away with it. It's mainly rated R, frankly, for the swearing more than anything. But it's like, this is just dumb. And predictable and just stupid. And also, like, the creepy kids in the dreams, which, the dreams just played over again. You're being punched in the face.
And in the exact sequence every time. Sits down, makes fun of the ketchup on the burger, knocks over the soda.
They do condense it a little bit more each time. Like, they cut out a little bit more each time, but it's still like,
They hit the main points.
Yeah.
So there's a nice slideshow each time.
Eventually, they cut to just him having been chasing the car.
Yeah.
Like, they jump ahead a little bit more each time, but it's like, I don't care. We saw this so many times. And then,
Did we even say what happened at this point? Or did we just talk about how stupid it was?
The dream?
Yeah.
Okay, so the dream, in case you don't know, is he's got this recurring dream, which is why he has to take sleeping pills, because hot tea and honey doesn't work, because he's an asshole. And he has this recurring dream about when his brother was kidnapped. They were out having a picnic or whatever at a park at the bench. His mom asks him to watch his brother. He gets distracted by a frisbee.
It flew in his general direction.
As you do.
He's a small child with the attention span of a squirrel.
And he looks up and he sees his brother driving away in a car. He's like, no, you're too young to drive. But he's being kidnapped, sitting very calmly in the back seat, going like, la da da.
He's looking out the window, being like, take me back.
I don't think so. He seemed completely content with where he was.
Like, ah.
He was playing with his airplane. He was fine. And so that's the dream that he keeps having. Kind of blames himself for it, rightfully so, partially.
I thought they were gonna play up that like his family fell apart because of that, and like his parents really blamed him.
Had another kid and then died.
Like they're not like the aunts mentioned, but the parents are just really.
All they say is that they died.
Yeah, it's just like
they were torn up about it, didn't talk much,
I guess,
and then died.
I don't know.
As you do. And so he has this dream a million times. Eventually, they start adding in these creepy kids, and I think you're supposed to be intrigued by the kids more so than creeped out by them. Like, they scatter and they have this scary sound effect, but it's like they're supposed to be scared of something, not you're supposed to be scared of them at first. Yeah. But you can kind of tell it's like, I don't trust these kids. Like, they're the bad guys. Once again, predictable, where it's just like, I don't trust these guys.
Because it's like the first time you see them, they just run away normally. And then it's like the second or third time the dream happens, he chases after one of the kids, and the kid turns around and slashes him with the hook.
Yeah.
And it starts to be like, oh, yeah, okay, everything's starting to
Yeah, and then he starts talking to them, and they realize that they're the dead children. And then they're like, oh no, we love your sister. We just want to hang out with them.
Yeah, because like
literally, we made fun of this. It was like a minute after they have a murder montage. They have a montage of them building a little castle with tables and chairs and shit.
Listen.
Happy music playing.
Those guys that they murdered, all right? Because,
bad guys.
And we'll get to why why they were breaking into this place in a little bit. But they were breaking. They broke in. They defiled the sanctity of Freddy Fazbear pizzas.
And so it's fine to murder them brutally.
Yes, and she came to them
off screen. And
well, I mean, no, actually. I mean, the first guy, all three of the guys were mostly off screen, but the girl was pretty on screen. It was the most gruesome part of the whole movie.
That was, it gave me like Stephen King's It vibes. Not quite as graphic, but like visually similar. And that's when I was like, oh, huh.
Like everybody else was just like, oh, they're in a room and you can hear screaming while they're clearly being killed. She was on screen, bit in half body dropped down with some blood.
I would say that may have been the most graphic part. The other part in contention is when they find the dead bodies later. They have a very brief close-up of the guy's face who had the cupcake sawing at his face. They show his face very briefly, and that was practical. And to me, practical effects are just more impactful than CGI. And when she was bitten in half, that was CGI goofiness. His face, I was like, oh, that looks cool. You know, once again, it's all within the realm of PG-13. They never really, it wasn't like when I saw Doctor Strange and I was like, this is a PG-13? I didn't have that reaction, but it was like, oh, we are at least pushing the boundaries, because up until that point I was like, why is this PG-13? There's like no swearing at all, very little blood, and so it was just like those couple of moments I was like, oh, okay, there we go, PG-13.
Yeah, that just knocked it over the edge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he brings his sister because I guess he doesn't want her to stay at home alone overnight all the time. You know what? The girl's dead by then. That's probably why. I forgot. The girl's already been killed by them.
Yeah, the babysitter.
The one of the girl that broke in with them, she was his babysitter. So
Yeah.
he doesn't have the
offered
babysitter anymore.
$200 to find incriminating evidence.
We'll get over that in a second because that's a great storyline that goes absolutely freaking nowhere. But
Lawyer, man.
But yeah, so he invites her and he tells her not to explore the place. He falls asleep, of course, because he always does. And she goes around, finds the
Sleeping
animatronics.
pills. It's not like, oh, I fell asleep by accident. He purposely goes to sleep.
Yeah.
He tries to go to sleep. It's so stupid.
So she goes to the animatronics, calls them out, and they start playing because they're children at heart,
Yeah.
and she's a child.
And they like her.
And they like her, and they want her to stay forever, like them.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to turn her into an animatronic, and he's trying to stop that. And I guess that after a while, she realizes, hey, I don't want that either.
Yeah, because of course it seems nice at first, and then it turns, evil and scary later. But yeah, doubling back to the cop girl though, that part made me laugh loudly by accident, where they're like, after shit goes down, they're leaving, and she's like, just go home, man, and you can't bring her back here. If you ever bring your sister back here, I'm gonna shoot you. I was like, nobody else laughed. I was just like, and I was like, oh shit, nobody else thought that was hilarious. I thought that was hilarious. Just her delivery was so bad. It was so unbelievable. I'm like, and also, what the fuck are you, like, the whole time she's like, it's fine, she's having fun, everything's cool. If you bring her back, I'm gonna shoot you. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, she literally, like, she sees the sister there.
Mm-hmm.
She shows up after, I guess, after,
cool.
and the sister is playing with all the stuff, and she starts playing with them too.
Yeah.
Just getting involved, building the fort.
Because he was creeped out by this. And
Yeah.
she's like, well, I guess it's time to build a fort. And then, cut to 5 minutes later, I'm gonna shoot you in the motherfucking face.
Yeah, and she's perfectly fine with all this happening, while at the same time they're playing, the little girl's playing with the animatronics. She's taking the other guy on a tour around the place, showing him all the murder devices.
Yeah, leaving them alone.
It's like, oh yeah, this is where you could get into here and it would just crush your body. It's just don't touch with that.
Just don't touch it.
Yeah,
Here, we'll
let me
use
show
the
you.
broom.
Let me show you what happens when it just snaps this broom handle in half.
Yeah, it's a bear trap. It's fine.
And then it's definitely cool for her to play around with the animatronics, but she can't touch the guitar strings while they're being played by the animatronics, because I guess that's going to complete the circuit and electrocute her.
Yeah, it's just live
But it was all
wires.
fine. No need to tell her that ahead of time.
No. But you're an idiot if you bring her back, and I'm going to murder you. Literally murder you.
It was all fine until it wasn't.
Stupid.
Because they want her now.
Yeah, dumb. Anyway, so yeah, with the people breaking in, so I guess you can't talk about them
No, you can't.
without talking about the aunt.
Yeah, you have
so
to,
the,
'cause
the
that-
aunt is your typical, she wants money aunt. She doesn't actually care about the kid. She just wants the monthly check from the government. And so she's hired a lawyer to
Just hilarious, because how much is that monthly check from the government for one kid?
You're still also having to then put money into taking care of the kid,
Now,
plus the time and effort.
Also, I guess she is claiming that the kid has mental illnesses that the psychiatrist is claiming they don't. So I guess if she could prove that, I don't know if the kid would get it as a kid, but eventually the kid would probably get some SSID or...
It wasn't even a
is.
psychiatrist. It was her freaking school teacher that was like, she's fine. Which,
Or was the principal or something like that, the guidance counselor or whatever?
just teacher.
Oh, just a teacher?
Just teacher.
Okay.
She was at the end of the movie going like,
So-
look how much he's improved.
Yeah, I guess that could be... I didn't see any signs of mental illness in this outside of the fact that
Imaginary friends?
the kid is, I guess, around 10 and still has imaginary friends and draws a lot of pictures and
and
is quiet.
very insistent that, oh, you're sitting on my friend. Or, can my friend hang out? Or like all this shit is like, your friends are not real and you are creepy as fuck, lady, girl, ma'am.
Hey, she's just an imaginative child.
But anyway, so the aunt is trying to prove that Josh is incapable of taking care of a child. So
Which
then
it very much seems to be.
so then the court will rule in her favor and she'll get the child, so she gets that sweet money. So she's hired a lawyer, which also costs sweet money, by the way.
Yeah.
Especially for a case like this, I doubt he's going to be like one of the lawyers that he only gets paid if you win. He's going to be like, this is a stupid case, you pay me up front, bitch.
I don't know about this guy. He didn't seem like he had any of those brains at all. Every single on-screen moment, it's just him. Bob! Yes, here's the paper.
What's happening? I shouldn't be here. And,
Yeah, no, I shouldn't be hearing any of this illegal stuff.
and anyway, so that plan to pay the babysitter to find incriminating evidence falls through. So she's like, you need a new plan, because I don't come up with the plans for some reason. You have to come up with the plan.
No, she came up with that plan. Now she's got to come up with the new next plan.
And paid you a whopping $200.
Didn't pay them yet.
Yeah, didn't pay you a whopping $200.
Because they didn't deliver on the goods.
And so then they're like, well, he works at this place, right? Why don't we break in? Make him look like he's not good at his job. And they're like, that's a good idea. If he gets fired from here, then he's got nowhere else to work. And you're like, okay, reasonable. This all makes sense so far. Sure. Yeah. So they wait until he goes home for the day. Yeah. And then they break in.
Which,
proving nothing.
Proving
that he's a valuable worker because they don't break in until he leaves.
I like how the cop was like, as soon as they found out about the break-in and the cop confronted him about it, and she's like, if you leave the door open, you might as well not be a security guard.
They broke in! They broke in through the back.
And the security
loading dock. That's why she throws away the sleeping pills. It's like, if you're not good at your job, you don't deserve to have the job. So stop sleeping on the job and remember to lock the door. And it's like, they broke in. Locking the door does not help. You were also there, by the way, was she not, that night?
What, the
night? Yeah, because they left together and then they broke in, right?
Yeah. So
she was there. Stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing about this movie was good.
Oh, gosh. But yeah, they break in, they smash up the place, the animatronics murder them all. And then
leading to like the only good part of the movie.
Yeah.
Was them dying.
And then like
that was fun. It was. I giggled. Multiple times people go running down this hallway and they're pressing on the paint bar and can't get out. And you turn around and the fox is there. And the fox just kind of like teleports forward and does the jump scare. That made me laugh out loud. Not making fun of it, just actually enjoying it. Because I'm like, there we go. That's the video game.
No, that
I enjoyed that. There was
get a little song as he's coming around the corner.
There was very few moments in this movie that were like that, though. And it's like, that should have been the whole damn thing. I enjoyed that scene. I enjoyed the scene at the beginning. As dumb as the overacting cop was, at least it was fun.
Yeah, at least he was trying to get out of the place. We got to have some interesting conversation of like, oh, well, can he just stay in the vents? They're definitely bigger than the vents. I didn't know about the cupcake beforehand, so...
Yeah, and then a little bit later with Josh Hutcherson running around, getting chased by them was also fine. There was some really dumb things in there, like keeping a 3-foot cattle prod down your pant leg. Yeah. Which is like, where were you keeping that this whole time? I'm pretty sure you had to bend your knees to go through the vent, which, by the way, he goes through the vent because she's like, you can't go through the front door. Go in through the vent. And it goes in through the vent into the main doorway, which is like 15 feet away.
But it worked out. It worked out because when he crawled over to the side of the stage, Freddy looked for him, didn't see him. And we haven't even discussed, we started discussing the aunt storyline. We only got up to where the people got killed.
Is there anything else to say?
But that's just it. After the people get killed, you expect that storyline to continue, to her come up with some other scheme. And all that happens is she shows up at the house one day to give the kid the wrong impression that the kid is being given away to the aunts.
No, she is, because she's in her house later.
Yeah, but was that because she's giving it away or because she needed a babysitter?
I think that they were giving her away.
They don't make that clear at all.
Once again, ghosts of previous scripts.
I agree that I originally and still think it was probably about giving the kid away, but they don't make that clear.
No, they don't.
They easily have the setup that she's just there as a babysitter, and this is a complete misunderstanding leading to the kid being distraught and leading to the end of the movie. Yeah. But then that's just it. After the Five Nights at Freddy's is wrapped up, the aunt storyline is never touched again.
She's just killed. We also need to mention, this movie is begging for a sequel. They don't kill the bad guy. They let him live specifically to ask for a sequel. It's so bad. It's so bad.
You get one of the little kids staring at him at the end.
Also, the whole scene with it. Okay, so like, they mentioned that the old suits were meant to be puppeteered from the inside. Like, they do have, like, super-powered joints so you can kick people across the room, apparently. But, like, there's a puppeteer inside, unlike the later iterations. So Matthew Lillard is in one of these old suits kind of leading the whole army of evil animatronics. And keep in mind, these are the same suits that have these bear trap-like things, rib cages around them. Now, they close to keep you in. so it should be closed because he is in.
He's already in, exactly. Because remember before when we saw the old prototype of it that was they were going to put the girl in.
Yeah.
That we saw as soon as she hit it, just touched it slightly with that broomstick. Bam!
Bam.
Closed.
Like a bear trap.
Yep.
Keeps you in place because you can't run away for some reason. But anyway, you are in the thing. And he is in the thing. So it should be closed. But now they've turned the animatronics against him. So they throw the cupcake at him. And the cupcake starts eating away at the suit. And he grabs it and throws it off. Exposing, you see the ribs. The ribs, one by one, start stabbing him and crushing him. It's like, why? And so then he's kind of having a breakdown going, I always come back. Scoob. I'll always come back, man. Zoinks.
Somebody get me a Scooby snack.
That really could use a Scooby snack, man. Freddy's trying to kill me. Scoob. And why did I not make this whole Freddy's Shaggy connection earlier? It's perfect. He starts freaking out, gets his helmet back on. He goes, I always come back. And then they start dragging him away instead of murdering him there. Anybody important, they don't just murder straight up. And then literally they have this conversation where Abby, the little girl, we haven't mentioned her real name once this whole time, but Abby says to Mike, Josh Hutcherson, like, I miss my friends. Can we go visit them? And he goes, you know what? Sometimes the future surprises you, or you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, you never know what's gonna happen.
You never know what's gonna happen. So it's like, please give us a sequel, please. And it's like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, why?
There's nothing left to do.
Who else are they gonna kill?
More
Is more
random
people gonna break in?
morons, I guess. Yeah. It's a shame that, like, I don't know. I felt like Matthew Lillard could have done a great job with this role. And he kind of did a pretty okay job. They just didn't let him do anything.
I will say this movie has reminded me that I want to see Matthew Lillard in more things, and he's probably been in things I just haven't seen since.
He mainly does like indie stuff, and frankly, usually not very good movies. And I feel bad for him because, like, other than Shaggy, which is I gotta assume a pretty good constant paycheck for him. He's playing him all the time anymore. It's just like because he was stuck in that typecast role of being like the douchey, annoying teen guy. And then after Shaggy, he aged out of that role. Yeah. So he was never really able to do that again. So it's like, I mean, he kind of, like, the last few roles he got to do with, like, Without a Paddle, if you ever saw that, because he was in his 20s now, still acting like that. So the character, his role was to be like, dude, you're too old to be acting like this. And so it's like, he was able to do that, and it was like, now he doesn't get anything interesting. Like, I never see him in anything anymore. Josh Hutcherson, too, since... I mean, I saw him in Bristol at the Hunger Games. I haven't seen him in anything since Hunger Games.
I've definitely seen him in one or two things, but I just can't remember what he's been in.
But yeah, you're right. They're both talented.
Yeah.
I would like to see them in more.
No, these people...
They deserve to be in more things.
There were definitely some good people in this movie, just not being good in this movie.
Some.
Yeah.
Name more than two. Name 3 good actors in this movie. I dare you.
Some is a flexible term.
2 is a very strong term. Rigid and firm. Exact and precise. 2. Shout out to the Henson Studios, though, man. Those animatronics, those costumes were good.
Yeah, the animatronics were definitely... I mean, like you said, everything about the set and the costumes were good.
Awesome. Best part about the movie, frankly.
Just the story and some of the people.
The story fucking sucked.
Yeah.
That dream sequence drove me crazy. I was like, I do not need to... And also, every time it happened, I was like, what does this have to do with Five Nights at Freddy's? Like, that game, I get it. The story's thin. But, like, this movie could have been just 90 minutes. You didn't have to make it a 2-hour movie. It could have just been 90 minutes about a guy who was desperate for money taking this job. That's all it had to be. That's all it had to be. Then animatronics come to life and try to kill him. That's all it has to be. I know, there's not much of a story. Guess what? A lot of horror movies don't have a lot of story. It's just person and situation trying not to die. Yeah. That's all you need.
They just went for the... They went for more story than horror and God, the story was bad.
It was so bad. And it's like, you don't need to add the story. I get it. You don't want him to be in the office the whole time. And so it's like the first time he gets up on day or night 1 or 2, I forget which it is, and he's going around with the flashlight, I was like, oh, come on. And then I was like, all right, fine. I get it. You have to move around or it's boring. If he's
he's never been there before.
Sure. And I get that. Those are acceptable changes. But you're adding in all these other characters you don't care about, all these dream sequences that don't matter, demon children. I'm like, I am out. They even have like one of those really boring, stupid jump scares where it's like the child is bleeding black blood from their eyes. I'm like, what are we doing? This isn't Five Nights at Freddy's. So yeah, I thought it was very bad.
Like they really should have just killed off the sister plot line. They should have killed off the aunt plot line. Honestly, the cop girl was bad, but her sticking around because of the father storyline makes sense. It's just
get rid of the father storyline. You don't need that either. It could just be Matthew Lillard being a little fucker. You don't need motive. That's the thing that people fall for when making horror movies is you don't need a motive for a psychopath to want to kill people. They're just psychopaths.
They really just needed more goons. It's really the whole thing.
Yeah, you needed more people to die and less everything
because like his whole the Josh Hutcherson's character, his whole thing could have been just trying to take down the place, trying to figure out the mystery without having his sister and the fucking aunt involved.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how the hell you involve more and more goons coming into this place if Josh Hutcherson isn't bringing them in himself, but like they could have done something.
And if you want to make the Matthew Lillard casting be less predictable, have him actually be a recurring character throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Like maybe once a night he calls in and checks on him like, hey, how you doing? All right, here's some advice. I used to be a security guard there. Like do a night at the museum type thing where it's just like there's a connection here where we don't like him, but we don't think he's the bad guy.
Yeah. It definitely would have been more interesting if maybe like one night he was there and he had to survive with him even though he was the evil guy.
Yeah, just do like because if you have the most famous actor in this movie in one scene
and then
never again, like something's up there. Like
they couldn't have really brought him in just for the intro.
Right, like that's not how it works unless you're like, wow, they really blew their whole budget on this.
It's literally exactly like every like Law and Order CSI show. As soon as you see a special guest appearance by, it's like, oh, the villain. What'd they do this week?
Yeah, it's just such bad writing. It really is. So, man, I think we actually did cover everything. That was a lot to cover, and I think we got it.
Basically.
Yeah, movie sucked.
Terribly.
Except for the few minutes that didn't.
Yeah.
And the few minutes that didn't were fun. They really were. All right, I think we're done. Movie sucked. I gave it a 4. What do you give it? Frankly, now that we've talked about it, a 4 feels generous, but I'm sticking with it. What do you think?
Gosh, I gotta work on my scale, but I'll give it a 4 as well.
Copycat, but at least it's accurate. No 6 this
4.5.
No 6 this time, are you sure?
I was gonna say 5, but like...
See, 5 is also accurate in a way.
5 is still really bad for me.
Yeah, but frankly, the reason I gave it a 4 is because part of me wants to give it a 5 and part of me wants to give it a 3 because I feel like a wide range about it because I'm like, the parts that were good were good. The parts that sucked were just so bad.
And the parts that sucked were just most of the film.
Yeah, unfortunately. So that's why I'm going with a 4. But all right, that's what we had to think. What do you guys think, though? If you've seen it, let us know in the comments below what you guys thought. Also, thank you for watching, liking, sharing, and if you're new here, subscribing. Bye.
Bye.